It's the midst of winter right now. We're coming up to the middle of January, and in this part of the world, in Northeast Ohio, the middle of January is typically when we get our lowest temperatures of the year. So I have to say, I can't wait to be past that point, because then I look forward to spring and getting my cars out again from their winter slumber. Now, what I normally do is I will winterize my cars. I keep my cars on battery tenders. I keep everything on battery tenders all year round. It's something you just get used to. And, you know, as soon as you've been out in the car, you bring it back in. You don't forget to plug it in because it's always on your mind. And I just keep it on a tender. And that way it helps to sort of extend the life of the battery, and you've always got a full charge when you get in the car. The other thing that I tend to do to winterize, obviously I check all the fluids. I will usually inflate the tires a little bit above normal as well before they go away for the winter. And then over the winter, I will periodically check them, because as you can expect in a collection of this size, you get slow punctures all the time. Sometimes I'll stuff a rag in the exhaust pipe so we've got no rodent problems. In this barn, it's generally free of rodents anyway. I've really only had one mouse in here, and that was when I first built it. I do have rodent poison down, dotted around, the same in my other garage as well, and in my shed where my tractor is. So I don't normally have that particular problem. The last thing, of course, is making sure that there's no mildew buildup inside. And in that regard, again, in here it stays very dry, so it's not that much of a problem. But in any case, what I normally do is I'll buy the little sort of buckets of crystals that dehumidify the car. The purpose of this video is to just go over basically what the car is, how long I've had it, just an introduction, and tell you basically what the work that was done back in 2023, and I'm a bit late for a 2023 video, and then to look forward to 2024, what the car needs doing and what my plans are in terms of maintenance, etc. Right, I'm Darren, and this is AutoAtlantica. Okay, let's start off with the car that you've just seen. This is my 2001 BMW 740i on the E38 platform. Now, I've had this car the longest in my collection. I've had it for about 15 years now. It's in Stratus Grey, which is a rare colour. They made 1,586 of these, all post facelift in 1998. This one's one of the last of the line, like I say, 2001. But this one is a especially rare colour combination because it's got the sand interior as opposed to the slate grey or the black. So as far as spend is concerned, nothing in 2023. 2023 generally was just an appalling driving season here. We had a lot of weekend storms, a lot of severe storms as well over the summer. And so these cars have barely been ran this past year, which is a crying shame. The BMW, the last major work that I had done on this car was 3 to 4 years ago, in actual fact. I had a fair bit done to it. It had new valve cover gaskets replaced because it was leaking oil. I had a new brake booster line on there as well. It's had a new power steering pump and new power steering lines. And it also had a new ignition switch. This is quite a common problem. When I first had the car, after a few years, it needed a new starter motor. And then whenever I started the car, it would just click, and that clicking would just get worse and worse. And so the local BMW dealership just replaced the starter motor again, and that wasn't the problem. It's a common problem with this M62 engine. Spend on this in 2023, absolutely zero. 2024, the first thing it needs is an oil change, and that'll be about it. This, to quote a certain person, is my 1989 Volkswagen Cabriolet Wolfsburg edition. This one's a bit special because it's an 89 Wolfsburg edition. They produce these Wolfsburg editions every few years, which was a bit of a misnomer since they were built by Carmen in Osnabrück. And but 1989, they were all in one colour, star blue, and they did not have leather seats, which you normally got in the Wolfsburg editions. And that was because they were built to celebrate VW's 40th anniversary in America. It's not known how many of these actually built. I've been told about 1,500. So, and I've seen one or two about. This one is the manual gearbox, which is what you want. It's got cruise control on it, which was an option. It's got air conditioning, which was an option as well. Very rare car. It's in really good condition. Doesn't really need for anything. However, 2023 spend, apart from a new battery, which cost $200, was nil. The previous spend on it prior to that, I've had a lot of work done on this engine. It's had new engine mounts, it's had a new transmission linkage, new brake booster cables, it's had new fuel. Both fuel pumps have been replaced on this car as well, the internal one and the external one. An awful lot of work. It's had a new water pump, new coolant lines put on this car as well to the radiator, new thermostat. It's had a lot done. I don't want to bore you with all the details. So that all took place about 3 years ago. What it does need doing is it needs a new windscreen because it's got a big crack in it, and the speedometer doesn't work because the sensor at the bottom of the speedo cable has fallen into the transmission. That will probably be a sizable job to have done. This is my 1977 Mercedes 230 on the W123 platform. Now, this is actually a German specification car. It's got quite a bit of provenance to it. It was bought by a Department of Defense official who was based in West Berlin, and he bought this new in West Berlin. He brought it back to the States under the grey import regulations. Because he was in the military, this still has the speedometer and odometer in kilometers. It's still got its original Grundig shortwave German radio in there as well. Obviously, in the spring, I'll do more videos on these. This is the only carburetted car I've got. Now, after the owner died, it took his wife several years to decide what to do with it, and it was sitting for a while. And when I bought it, it would cut out all the time when you came to a stop. First thing I did was flush the fuel out and put new V-power in it, but it did need a carburetor rebuild. That's a single Stromberg in this. This is the old M115 engine. And then it died. The car died on me after that, and we had to have the points and condenser replaced. I also had some new rubber hoses as well between the airbox and the carburetor itself, so the car breathes better. The last spend on it was back in 2022 with that work that I had done, and that was the best part of probably about $1,000 altogether, but nothing in 2023. This is my 1990 Jaguar XJ40. This is a Vanden Plas Majestic. Now, the Majestic was just built for the US. There was essentially two runs of it. There was the Regency Red one, which this is in 1990, where they built 546 of them. And then there was another run in 1992, and those were all in black cherry, and they only built 121. They were all on the standard short wheelbase platform, all US only. But this was the top model. This was the Vanden Plas on steroids, if you like. Same engine, but just more luxuriously appointed. So it's pretty much a standard car. I have managed to source the gold leaf badges for the rear that it was missing when I bought it. I've had this car now for about 6 years, and also it was missing the front fog lights as well. And they did use like CBs and Bosch, I think. I've managed to source a new old stock CB, and I'm after another one. So that's ongoing. As far as mechanicals are concerned, there was a zero spend on this in 2023. It will need an oil change in 2024. The last major work that I had done on this was about 4 to 5 years ago. This has got the hydraulic rear shocks on it, which are prone to leaking. They use that awful mineral oil. and it was just leaking everywhere. So I had the rear shocks replaced with just regular coilovers, and then I had the whole lot crimped off at the front. That work cost me about $2,000. This is my 1994 Jaguar XJS in British Racing Green. I've had this car a little while now, about 8 years, something like that. The spend last year on this was nil. The spend prior to that, in the previous year, was quite a lot, about $1,300. I had quite a bit of the engine torn down. We replaced the entire cooling system, with the exception of the radiator. The radiator's in good shape. I also had a new valve cover fitted on this as well. This is a straight six, of course, exactly the same engine, the AJ6 engine that's in my XJ40, and it's as clean as a whistle. When you take that valve cover off, it is one of the best that I've ever seen. The big problem with this car is cosmetics. It is going to need all of the glass removing on the passenger side, because rust has crept in along the roof line, well, water's crept in, and it's also gone down to the rear buttress. I don't know how bad it is. I don't think it's going to be great. Now, this is never going to be a concourse car, so I'm really not bothered how it gets fixed as long as it's done professionally. I'm also going to need a small floor panel, part of the floor panel underneath the passenger footwell, because that's gone into a small hole, and that's because of a coolant leak caused by the heater core before I bought the car. Once we get to the cosmetics, that is going to be a pretty penny. Now, the post facelift coupes like this, and when I say post facelift, I mean post 2003, when the big molded bumpers were put on. Only around 720-ish were actually imported into the US for 1994 and 1995. 10 times more than that were actual convertibles, because climate. This is my 2002 Mini Cooper on the R50 platform. It's probably the most common car that I've got here. There's not a huge amount of provenance to this car, although the actual story of this car's development is fascinating. It is very like the Rover 75. It is very much a story of the struggle with BMW and Rovers infighting. I've had this car a while. It needs for nothing. The first thing that I had done to it, as with many of these, the hatchback hinges were failing. I mean, there are cases of hatchback doors falling off these. Mine on one side had failed quite a bit. I'll show you a picture of that. So the first thing we did was have that replaced, and we had new hinges put on, which were aftermarket but stronger than the manufacturer hinges. We also had some paint work done on the car as well, around the back where it had been chafing, on the tailgate. And as far as the cosmetics are concerned, it really does need for nothing. It's got a little bit of rust on the bottom of the door. The biggest issue with this is oil. It has got a humongous oil leak. It is leaking from the pan. It is leaking from the timing belt cover, timing chain cover rather, and it's leaking from the valve cover. So all of that needs to be done. That's about $1,500 worth of work, and I have designated 2024 as the year when my Mini gets loved.